This is going to be a video on my Dire Straits collection. Dire Straits, for me, is one of the greatest bands of the late 70s and 1980s. When they came out on the radio during the whole post-punk movement where you had the Pretenders, the Talking Heads, the Police, the Cars, Elvis Costello, they still sounded like nothing else that was on the radio or nothing else that was coming out at the time. You had a guitarist who played like Chet Atkins and who sounded like Bob Dylan. You had a rhythm section like Creedence Clearwater Revival, and they were such a breath of fresh air. And really, it was just kind of eye-opening to hear something like that, especially when the radio airwaves were filled with disco and kind of the last remnants of southern rock and guitar rock. So Dire Straits has always been special to me, and I think to a lot of people too. People fell in love with Dire Straits instantly, and that loyalty is carried even to this day. Their debut album, Dire Straits, with Sultans of Swing. It's got Down to the Waterline, which is a great up-tempo lead-off track. Water of Love, which is kind of slow and bluesy. Six Blade Knife, which is great. Also kind of a dark, atmospheric, bluesy kind of track. And then one of my favorite Dire Straits tracks is Lions. This is the inner sleeve. And of course you had Mark Knopfler on lead guitar, you had his brother David Knopfler on rhythm guitar, you had John Illsley on bass and Pick Withers on drums. Unfortunately, the Knopfler brothers were like the Davies brothers and the Gallagher brothers, and their union was not to last very long because it seems like they fought just like the other brothers. This is the CD version that I have, the remastered. And inside the booklet are just the picture from the inner sleeve and the lyrics. Dire Straits' second album, I don't want to call it a carbon copy of their first album, but if you like the first album a lot, you will like this one also. It's got shorter songs, same style as the first album, same lineup. This is the last time this lineup would represent a Dire Straits album. And all these early Dire Straits albums have the typical Warner Brothers label. These remind me a lot of my Van Halen collection, because not only are the labels the same, but on the cassettes and CDs when they were released, they were also in the same format. Cassettes look the same, and the inlay cards also just have the track listings. And then this is not the remastered CD, it's just the original issue on BMG Record Club. And on the inside of this the booklet, there's no lyrics, just a picture and the track listing. Their third album was a departure. This is Making Movies, and shorter songs, but more depth to each of the songs. You've got Mark Knopfler really stretching out. It's a more ambitious album than the first two. You got Tunnel of Love. You got Romeo and Juliet, Hand in Hand, which is a great song, and then Skate Away, which I think might have been the only video from this album that was on MTV. I remember seeing it when it came out. And get that right way up. And the cassette. And the CD is another remaster. And this booklet has got the lyrics and the pictures that were on the inner sleeve. And these remasters really do sound phenomenal. If you're wondering, if you got the old CD and you're wondering if you should invest in the remasters, the answer would be a resounding yes. My second favorite Dire Straits album of all time is Love Over Gold. This has even shorter songs, but they're very darker, more moody, atmospheric. You've got Telegraph Road, Private Investigations, just two killer tracks right off the bat. Industrial Disease, which kind of pointed the way almost to Walk of Life from the next album. But that's about the most up-tempo track on this album. The others are, I say dark in a good way, but it's just an album you can have in the background and just really a satisfying listen all the way through. Just the lyrics on the inner sleeve. Again, the Warner Brothers label. And for those of you not from Michigan, Telegraph Road was actually based on a road in Michigan. I'm not sure why that was, but I've driven it many, many times. I thought I had the cassette on that one, but I do not, so I will just show the CD. And I'll show it the right way up too. The difference between the remastered CD, which is this one, and the original CD is the lettering, and this picture is closer up. So it's not a replica of the original album. It's kind of a tighter shot of that picture. This just has the lyrics and credits. And so this album and the album before, Making Movies, they were down to a trio. David Knopfler had left. I don't know if it was during or prior to the Making Movies session. And then the first live Dire Straits album was a double album, like most albums in the late 70s. And early 80s. This is it's like a polyurethane sleeve, but I've never seen a black one before. Again, just the typical Warner Brothers label. And I don't know if there was anything else that came with this album, but, and I don't know if those are the original inner sleeves or not, but those are what I have with this one. Don't have it on cassette or CD, unfortunately. And then I always thought this was called the Twisting by the Pool EP because it's got it printed on the side, but it seems that it was called the Extended EP Dance Play. I've seen conflicting information on exactly what to call this, but I'll just refer to it as the Twisting by the Pool EP. This has got Twisting by the Pool, badges, posters, stickers, and t-shirts, which there's not really badges, posters, stickers, and t-shirts contained in the album. That's actually the name of the song. And then on side 2, Two Young Lovers and If I Had You, which the last song title you would ever associate with Dire Straits, especially after Love Over Gold and Making Movies, would be Twisting by the Pool. But just sort of a, I think, a fun little side release for them while they were recording the next album. Typical, just the usual Warner Brothers label. And this is the cassette. And really nothing in the inlay card apart from a few credits. So the album that really made Dire Straits a household name was Brothers in Arms. Of course, the huge video on MTV, Money for Nothing, featuring Sting on vocals. This really propelled them into superstardom and hastened the breakup of the band also. It also has Walk of Life, So Far Away. Side 1 are kind of the poppier songs, and then side 2, which is actually, I prefer side 2, has got more songs in the vein of Love Over Gold. They're more extended suites, a little moodier and darker, almost a little bit of world music thrown in there. Ride Across the River is a great song. I almost imagine kind of floating along the river in the Amazon listening to that song. The Man's Too Strong, which is a great track. And One World, which could have been a single. I don't know if it was ever released as one, but I just love that track. And then the title track, Brothers in Arms. For the first time, Dire Straits got a custom label. In terms of my rankings of Dire Straits album, this would probably be number 3. And it's so hard because each of their albums was solid. So what I feel are my, top 6, well, they only had 6 albums, but, how I rank their 6 albums today would definitely change a month from now. This is the cassette. And the CD remastered. And then the book just has lyrics and credits. And so after the huge success of Brothers in Arms, it was time for the first Dire Straits Greatest Hits compilation, which was called Money for Nothing, to capitalize on the huge hit. And this was actually a still from the music video, for those of you who've seen the Money for Nothing video. It's got a clear case. got Sultans of Swing, Down to the Waterline, Portobello Bell, Live, Twisting by the Pool, a remix, Tunnel of Love, Romeo and Juliet, Where Do You Think You're Going from the second album, Side 2, Walk of Life, Private Investigations, a live version of Telegraph Road, Money for Nothing, and Brothers in Arms. And a decent hits collection. I don't think most people realize at the time that Dire Straits' lifespan was going to be so brief. This is the CD. So everything that was pretty much also in the cassette is there. And then Dire Straits' final album, which is my favorite. Most people, I think, dismiss it because it was released a few years after Brothers in Arms. It was their last album. It came out in the 90s. It had a lot of songs on it. And so I don't think there's a lot of recognition for this album. On Every Street. Some of my favorite Dire Straits songs are on here. I can listen to this over and over and not get tired of it. I love On Every Street. I love Fade to Black. It's such a great, nice, moody blues song. The Bug is great. You and Your Friend is fantastic. Planet of New Orleans. If you're not familiar with this album, if you've kind of dismissed it because it was their last album, or just haven't had the time to invest in listening in it, I definitely would recommend this. My number one, and I'm sure a view not shared by many people, but I don't care. And so the lineup on here, the only two original members by this time are Mark Knopfler and John Elsley. We've got Alan Clark and Guy Fletcher to round out the band. And that was it. That was the end of the Dire Straits studio album catalog. However, they did come out with another live album, but before I show you that, I will show you the cassette for On Every Street. And the live album is called On the Night. Not a bad live album. Don't like it as much as their first. But that's probably to be expected. And I think there is a slim to none chance of Dire Straits ever getting back together. I've read interviews where Mark Knopfler has absolutely no interest in putting the band back together. He's very satisfied with his solo career, and I can respect that. That's another great thing about Dire Straits is they didn't go on and put out a bunch of substandard or crappy albums and just kind of fizzle out. I think they went out on a high note. I think they knew when it was time to call it quits, kind of like the Breaking Bad TV series. It was only 6 seasons long. And that is my Dire Straits collection. Love to hear your comments, see what you think about Dire Straits. Am I wrong? What are your album rankings? Hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. And thanks for watching.